Hello and welcome everyone to Selective Prep Power Thinking Skills Test 48. So today we will be looking at 10 questions that we have selected out of your test paper and going through the solutions of that. Let's have a look at the first one. First question was a making conclusions question. So usually we are drawing the main conclusion out of this passage. But in this specific case, the question asks, which of the following conclusions is best supported by the passage above? So rather than a summarizing main argument or main point, which is what they sometimes ask, they're asking out of A, B, C, D, which one is best supported. So we will go through the options and try and cancel out the ones that don't make sense. First of all, A says children, teenagers, and adults should obtain a minimum of 8 hours of sleep per night. Now, A is not best supported by this passage because it says there's no correct amount of sleep that children, teenagers, or adults should obtain each night. And you can locate this by looking at the keywords here. Okay, links directly, so A is out. We'll skip B, let's do C. Sleeping more can compensate for a lack of sleep. Now C is out as well, because it says the amount of sleep a person obtains does not necessarily reflect the amount of sleep a person needs. Okay, that's actually for D as well. Look at the statement. The amount of sleep is often indicative of how much sleep that they actually really need. So that's here, that's here. Let's find another one for C. Here, healthy sleep is likely a combination of both quality and quantity. So just because you sleep more doesn't necessarily mean you can compensate for a lack of sleep. So B is actually the answer. The adjective chronically refers to a condition of being long-term rather than short-term. Yes, that is correct. Someone who is chronically deprived of sleep consistently obtains too little sleep. Consistently means often or always, long-term. So B is the answer here. Okay? As always, you can read the solutions for more detail. Oops. Number 2, consider the following series. What comes next in the series? So there are a couple patterns going on. Let's look at the obvious one first. The squares. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. So in our final box, we expect 4 squares. So A can be cancelled out. Another thing, the colors. A black ring, a white ring, and a black ring. So the next one should be a white ring. So D can be crossed out too. Now looking at B and C, when there's 2 options left, you can look at the difference. What are we looking for? Well, you can see that the squares are first of all black. So you can cancel out B. That's why C is the answer. Another thing is that the squares, they're going inside, outside, or center, outer, center, outer. So they should be located in the outer ring, which is why C is the correct answer. Okay, logical reasoning question. Basically, there are 2 stages, stage A and B, 5 bands that play in a festival, and the first 3 are rock bands. So these are rock bands. And the last 2 are heavy metal. Heavy metal. Okay, the peppers just goes on, the red hot chili peppers. Then we have a list of facts, and you basically had to place in the different bands as to where they go. So you wanted to construct a quick table that looks something like this. We have stage A. Oops. It's going to be a lot of columns here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay, remember, it goes on for a week. And we have stage A and stage B. And for example, first of all, bands who play rock songs play on weekdays. We don't know which stage, okay, so we'll leave that one. Bands who play heavy metal perform on odd days of the week. All bands perform on stage B except for Nirvana and U2 who perform on different stages. So from that point, we can look at the first statement, weekdays, rock bands, U2 and Red Hot Chili Peppers Remember, Nirvana and U2 we don't know, but we know that Red Hot Chili Peppers will definitely perform on weekdays and in stage A, and so on. You start going on and filling this out, okay? You end up with a table that looks something like that. Let me just rub this out. Yes, so obviously it took a bit of time to prepare this, so just take your time with it. That's what I would recommend, and make sure you're following the facts one by one. So which day has the most bands on stage A? Looking at stage A, you can see that Friday we have U2, we have Red Hot Chili Peppers, and we have AC/DC. That's 3 bands, which is the most we have. So C is your answer. I would recommend you to pause this video at this point and just try and fill out the table for yourselves and get that solution in your own working. Number 4, Angela wants to buy a present and she doesn't want anything made from animal products. She should buy her friend what? The answer is C. Leather belt. A leather is made out of dried skin of an animal. So it might be horse skin, or it might be snake skin, or whatever. Okay, leather or cow hide, cow skin. Woolen cardigan. Woolen, obviously wool comes from sheep. It's the outer coating that they shed or that we shear off them. Ivory comes from the tusks of rhinos or elephants. And cotton is the only one here that actually is a plant-based material. Okay, cotton is a flower, and it is picked by people to make tops and different garments. So C is your answer. Number 4, so we have half of this wire that's bent into a rectangle. The rectangle is 14 by 7. By giving us the dimensions, we can figure out the perimeter. It'll be 14 plus 7, and you're going to multiply that whole thing by 2 for the other 2 sides. 21 by 2 is 42 centimeters. That means half of the wire is 42, so the other half must also be 42. Now this other half was bent into an equilateral triangle, so you're going to divide it by 3, and that's why you get 14 centimeters per side. Why do we divide by 3? Because we know an equilateral triangle has all equal sides, and each triangle has 3 sides. Okay, so we can divide evenly by 3, giving the answer D. Okay, number 6, we have a ratio. Peter to Mary in the ratio of 8 to 12. Peter gives a quarter of his stickers to Mary. What is a quarter of 8? We're going to use another color. That's 2. Minus 2 from Peter plus 2 to Mary. And what do we end up with? We end up with 10. Oops, not 10. Minus 2 is 6 to 14. Okay? Now, Mary gives 50% of her stickers to Peter. So we're going to divide that by 2. That's 7. Minus 7, remember to plus 7 onto Peter. And what do we get? We get 13 to 7. Remember, each time on the red ones, you have to check that it adds up to 20, because that's the total number of parts we have in the ratio, and it should always add up to 20. We're not losing parts, we're just exchanging. Okay, so what is the new ratio? It's 13 to 7, which is D. Please don't choose C. Okay, that's very, very close. The reason why it's not C is because they ask Peter to Mary in that order. If it was Mary to Peter, you would pick C, but it's not, so it's D. Which one would most weaken Jamie's argument? What is his argument? Let's highlight. Jamie believes that animals should not be kept in captivity because it is unethical to use them for human entertainment. So if we had a statistic or a fact piece of evidence that argues that we're not keeping them in captivity for entertainment, then that would be a weakening statement. And looking at C, current research suggests that repeat visitors take an interest in interactive conservation opportunities offered and developed increasing empathy towards animals. C is the best one because it shows that animals are not just kept for human entertainment, rather there are some other deeper purposes such as conservation and preserving these animal species. Okay, it actively encourages these visitors to have more interest and empathy towards animals. So C is the best answer here. Number 8. So the statement says 50% of washing machines at Bingley cannot be loaded with more than 5 kilograms of clothes or other things. It's a home appliance store, therefore at other appliance stores such as Good Guys, it is fair to say that around 50% of washing machines will also have the same problem. Now this is what we call an unfair extrapolation. We are taking a bit of evidence that works for one company or one person or one group and assuming and applying it to everything that belongs in the same category just because it was true for one category. Okay, so that is the mistake. So A is actually the mistake. Okay, the results are only valid for Bingley because we only surveyed Bingley. We only researched about Bingley. We cannot extrapolate to other stores. Have a read of this if you like more information. Right, 9. So we have a side of 30 meters for a square. Ben walks 3 times around the square in anti-clockwise direction, then 2 3/4 times around clockwise, and finally 7 1/4 times around in anti-clockwise direction. He ends up at C. How far did he walk? So remember, these quarter turns are the things that are going to direct the direction. Okay, no pun intended. Because the whole times, if I walk one whole time around, it's going to get me back to the same spot. Okay, so first of all, let's figure out how many meters he's going to walk. So let's add up the time. So 3 plus 2 3/4 plus 7 1/4. So that's 3 plus 7 is 10, 12 4/4, which is 13. We're going to do 13 times the whole square is 30 times 4, which is 120. That's a perimeter, okay? So 120. You times it by 120, and you actually get a total of 1,560 meters. At this point, you can see that C is the answer straight away. So you can just move on from there. If you're confident with your number, you can just move on. But let me show you how to get to the location. So remember I just said the whole times that you walk around, like the 2 and the 7 and the 3, it doesn't really matter, okay? Because it's going to get you back to the original, it would get you back to the original spot. But what we do have to realize is the direction, anti-clockwise, clockwise, okay? So let's try. First of all, starting in the back, we start at C. 7 1/4 times in an anti-clockwise direction. Like I said, I don't worry about the holes, okay, because it's going to go around and come back to the same spot. But the quarter time is important. It's going to move us back once ultimately. Okay, so we're going to end up at B. Now we have 2 3/4 in a clockwise direction. Same logic, don't worry about the 2. The 3 is important though. We're going 1, 2, 3. We're going to end up at A. Okay, and the last thing, 3 times around in an anti-clockwise direction. We're going anti-clockwise, but it will still end up at A ultimately, okay? Because it's going to just cancel out, going back around 3 times. So that's why it's A. And last one of the day, find the answer for this pattern. You can see that the way that this pattern is structured, there is something going on between these two numbers to produce this final number. You can try adding. The first one might work. 9 times 6 is 54. Second one though won't work. You add it, you get 7. The second one is interesting because it shows you a multiple of 5. So to me, there is something going on. We have to times this together to get to the number. And again, 54 is a multiple of 6. 9 times 6, 4 times 5. Do you see a relationship? Yes. We're going to square the first number and then times the second. We square the first times the second. 25 times 2 gets us to 50, or C. Okay, so some key points from this test. What should we start with? Start with patterns. There's a couple pattern questions. always make sure to isolate the different thing or elements or movements in the pattern, okay? Think about the individual things or objects that are moving. That will make it easier and less confusing, okay? The next thing, for logical reasoning questions, I want you to try and construct some kind of organization on your page. This may be a diagram or a table or even a simple sketch, okay, for like volume and area questions. Alright, so that's it for today. Hope you guys have a lovely week and I'll see you in the next video.